Hey everybody, it's Gil here with the Sailing Vessel Dream Chaser. Welcome back to another Friday video. So glad to have you here. Today we're going to talk all about passage planning or route planning. As most of you know, we have our sailboat in north of Lake Pontchartrain in southern Louisiana, not too far from New Orleans, and we want to sail it here to the southwest portion of Florida. With hurricane season being in the midst here, we have not sailed it over at this point. But we are getting close, right? We're starting to get into the later couple of months here of hurricane season, and we are starting to think that maybe in the next 30 to 45 days, that might be the time to go ahead and sail the boat back. So we'll look at what our weather windows look like. But this one's really about, let's plan our ultimate route. We're going to use some chart plotting software. I'm going to show you at a sort of a macro level where we are, where we need to go from and to. And then I'm going to show you some of the things I consider when I determine what my route needs to be. So let me give you a little bit of background on a couple things that we're considering. One, if you're new to our channel, you may not know we have a 51-foot classic sailboat. We went through a fairly extensive refit over 4 years while living aboard the boat. And because of that, the boat is not well tested in the ocean. I think it's a safe boat. I have no sort of concerns about that. I shouldn't say no concerns. I have a little bit of a pit in your stomach. You get a little nervous about that. So what I'd like to do for this particular route is I would like to go a little bit on the inside. I'm going to go through the intercoastal waterway for a portion of it. Let's call it the first day of the trip. And then we're going to jump outside and we're going to go into the Gulf of Mexico, and we're going to cross the Gulf of Mexico. And when we open up the chart plotter software, I'll show you some of those reasons why, and why we pick the places we do to go in or out. In being in the inland water protected by barrier islands, or even the intercoastal waterway where it moves inland a little further from the coast, and then out being out in the Gulf of Mexico offshore. All right, so let's jump into the software. Okay, so I've moved inside. I'm sitting at my desk. This is actually where I sit and work every day. I'm going to be using my MacBook, and I'm on the Navionics website. I subscribe to the Navionics app on my phone, and because of that, it lets me create my waypoints and all my charts and routes right on the PC. It's a little easier to navigate and move things around, bigger screen to be able to show here. And then I can see them on anything that actually has my Navionics subscription. So I can do it on my iPad, on my iPhone, on my wife's Android device, whatever it is we want to do there. Let me just kind of show at a really high level where we need to start and where we need to end. Our boat is in the Tchefuncte River. It's a very small hurricane hole protected marina on the north side of Lake Pontchartrain. So it's in southern Louisiana, but it's not right along the Gulf of Mexico. So you can see that designated here by a star. You'll also notice a star down in the bottom left-hand side of Florida. This is the southwest part of Florida where we live. And this is ultimately the route we need to go. You can see a couple of areas that are circled in red. So anything east of Pensacola, I can no longer go through there. I zoomed in and I looked at every single overhead power cable and also fixed bridge along the intercoastal waterway. And we have a 62.5-foot mast clearance. That's what it looks like. It makes me nervous, anything below 64. And there are bridges here that are 65 up to 73 or so. Now, on the west side of Pensacola, we can actually go in protected water. So I'll show you what that part of the route looks like. Once I hit Pensacola, there's too many 44-foot power cables, 55-foot bridges, and some 58-foot bridges. And they're fixed. They're not bascule drawbridges. And in Carabel, Florida is where the intercoastal waterway ends. So you'll see that is designated by a green circle here. That's the area where the intercoastal ends. And then the next green circle, as you go south on Florida, that is around Tarpon Springs, Florida, and that is where the intercoastal waterway begins again. So there is a section of the U.S. where there is no intercoastal waterway. It is the only section. So that's our decision on where we'll go. But that gives you sort of the macro level. So now let's zoom in and take a closer look here. We're going to start right here in the area where our boat is. We're going to zoom right in here. This little river you see is the Tchefuncte River, and we are way on up the river in a protected area. So our first part of this trip is going to be to come down the river. I'm not going to actually chart my course through here. So I am going to start my routing right here. And I'm going to do this manually. I'm not going to bother trying to do it automatic. There's a couple of interesting things here. We can set some information about our boat, which we ultimately want to do. So we have a 6-foot draft. Our cruising speed, I'm going to say on average is miles per hour. I'll do 6 miles per hour. And fuel consumption's about 1.1 gallon per hour. Okay, so it gives us some information about our boat. That'll help if we do the auto routing, right? It needs to know that for sure. So let's start with our first starting point by routing away here, right out here toward this lighthouse. All right, so now we're going to zoom out. So I'm going to chart my course right to this marker, and we'll zoom in. Go ahead and mark right to our section here. Right out of the bridge, and we'll come straight across. Find where this bridge is open. Right about here. Now, we have several bridges here. We actually have a railroad bridge, and it is a bascule bridge. It's typically in the open position unless a train is coming. That's what we see here. You can see it's got a vertical clearance of 4 feet when it's closed, but it's a bascule, so it's open. There's also the bascule bridge here at 151 foot clearance, right? So clearly not an issue there. We're going to come through that particular bridge, and then we get to the actual fixed bridge here, and this one is 73 feet. So we're going to take this at its highest point, which it's not noting on here where it is, but since I'm going to connect to this channel right here, I'm just going to go ahead and assume that we'll do something like this. And I like to put waypoints on both sides of any bridge. It gives me a nice indication right on the chart plotter that I'm coming up to it. When I have my time to my next waypoint, I'm always looking at that one that's going to be right there by the bridge. For me, it's just a good way when I'm actually in the boat navigating to sort of make it clean, if you will. All right, so I'm going to do this fairly roughly and quick. I'm not going to keep zooming in to make sure I'm exactly in channels and whatnot. For the purpose of this particular video, but normally I would do exactly that. I would zoom in here and make sure that this waypoint was in just the right spot, and that my line, my sort of trek line, was going to be in the deep water. I'd want to make sure I was doing all that kind of stuff. So that's definitely something I normally would do. And here's a great example, right? Put it here, and then I would do a second waypoint in this particular area so that I was kind of planning it appropriately. I will tell you, this bridge makes me a little bit nervous. This bridge is 66 feet. 66, we're 62 and a half. There is little doubt I will have a pucker factor going on as we go under this. Okay, so let's go ahead and pop our next waypoint in here. This is kind of nice. You can just add a waypoint anywhere you kind of feel like you need to stay in the middle. And, with the depth what it is here, it's not a huge deal. All right, I'm going to zoom back out because we are now at a place where we can start to, expand our time a little bit here. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this again pretty rough. You notice these white areas. Let me zoom in here. This is a spoil area. A spoil area is just where they dredge this channel. They dump the dirt that they dug out over there. And these are typically very shallow areas. So it's important as you get to these that you do make sure that you are not running along those things outside of these channels too far. You will run aground. Especially with a boat that's drawn 6-foot draft. Okay, what I'm looking at here is a ship channel. This is a north-south ship channel, and I want to make sure that I'm aware of it. I'm going to be looking for traffic, so I set myself a waypoint again before and after, much like I do on bridges, and then we can sort of make some hay here. So I'm going to put a waypoint all the way out here. Follow my magenta line. Do me a favor, if you enjoy this type of content, I'd love for you to go ahead and subscribe to the channel, or go ahead and share the video. I'm really interested to hear from you down in the comments. What was the last passage you took, and how did you go about route planning? What software did you use? Did you just do it with paper charts? Did you actually use your iPhone or your Android device? Let me zoom back out. We've got our waypoints on either side of the bridge, and now we are into Mobile Bay. So I'm going to do the same thing here. This is the Mobile ship channel. Again, I have a bridge here. It's a fixed bridge with a vertical clearance of 73 feet, horizontal of 150. I've never seen one that was horizontal was an issue. So this is the point where we would jump offshore. And it's always good to get everything prepped, get settled, make sure that the boat's ready to go, ship shape for offshore. You want things stowed, locked away, etc. I joked around, I called it Sail at Home. I'm going to call this Pontchartrain to Pensacola. So you can now see what our route looks like. Right? Here's our inland route. So let's do the second half of this now. We'll jump over here to Pensacola. We're going to create the next one. Go ahead and route. We're going to create a new manual route. And let's call this one Pensacola to Punta Gorda. All right. And with this, we will start our first spot here. So our kickoff spot is going to be right at that anchorage. We're going to go up to this channel. That's going to be very important because this is shallow through here. So at this point, we are now going to jump offshore. And the first thing we want to do is I like to always put a waypoint right at the 3 nautical mile line. You'll notice that there's a magenta line here. That's the 3 nautical mile line. This is a beautiful little spot if we wanted to sail along the shore. Look at this nice little protected area, this Port St. Joe area. If we come into this, it's great protected anchorage right in here as well. But it's a little bit out of the way. If you notice, we are heading down here. So no sense in sailing right to there. It wouldn't be too far off, but I think it's better if we just cut it from here all the way down. All right, so I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm just going to throw my my next point right off of Boca Grande Pass, which is where we would need to come into Charlotte Harbor. And we'll do it at the 3 nautical mile line again. So there you go, that's 390 miles, sort of open ocean, if you will. You can kind of see what this would look like. Now that's the cut we'd be doing across, from Pensacola past Panama City, or Destin and Panama City, and Carabel and St. Mark's and Tallahassee's up here, and all the way down past Tampa and St. Pete and Sarasota, right down to there. I'm going to zoom in for just a minute and just kind of take a look at a little bit of these things out here along the route, just to make sure we don't see anything crazy, any big oil fields or something like that. Everything looks pretty good here. The Nipple, that's a weird name, but okay. And it always makes me nervous when I see unexploded ordnances, but that's fine too. All right, so now let's zoom in and actually build our route all the way up into Charlotte Harbor. Here we are, 2.5 miles out in the ocean, and we've got 6-7 foot depth right here. A little odd. Just pick a nice kind of clean path all the way up here. I think this looks pretty good. I want to stay to the right of this particular shallow area. It's still plenty deep, but just stay to the side of it. This little oyster bed and shallow, we fish out here. It's sometimes 2 feet deep out here. So where this Charlotte Harbor obstruction is. And then we'll zoom in here. We'll kind of look at our overall route. I think we'll just take this right up to the channel marker here and to here. All right, so I think that's good. We're going to save this one, and we'll look at what our total is on this particular leg. This is a 426 mile leg, so as you can see, that's going to be a fairly long one as well. And that gives us our 2 routes. So as I mentioned before, we can do this on the phone as well. And if I go right here to the phone and I just click on my routes and go to my route archives, I now have the 2 that I just created on the computer. So if I look at Pontchartrain to Pensacola, you're going to see my route is already there. And the nice thing is, even though it's on a mobile device, you can certainly zoom right in and take a look at any of these pieces you want. I mentioned before the ability to get information about some of these, and I wasn't able to do it just because we were in the middle of route planning. But here's a great example. If I click on this little bridge icon and put my question mark over it, you'll notice it shows me information on it. If I click on it, it's going to give me all the info on the bridge. This is at ICW mile marker 128. Expect the current to set 2 knots west during an ebb tide. It gives me information on the bridge. It's a fixed bridge. and it's at 83 feet at high water, right? So it gives me all the information I need to know. And we talk about redundancy. Having an iPhone is a pretty good level of redundancy. We'll have 2 phones and the iPad, maybe even 2 iPads, in addition to the 2 chart plotters we have on board. That's it. That's kind of our plan. I think that makes a lot of sense, right? It gives us that protection of inland waters or protected waters for the first day or 2. It then allows us to rest up right by our exit point out into the open ocean offshore. And then we kind of cut that whole corner of what I always call the armpit of Florida. We cut that whole corner of Florida off from Pensacola all the way down to the southwest portion of Florida. And it's a true offshore, multi-day, probably 3-day trip offshore. But I think that makes a ton of sense. It gives us that ability to sort of have that safety. And, you could hug the coast if you wanted the whole way. And it sort of gives you an artificial safety net, right, when you can see shore right over there. But the reality is there is no intercoastal waterway along that curved part of Florida, and there's not a whole lot of places to take a boat with our mast height and our depth in. So it just doesn't necessarily make sense to make all those extra miles for the artificial safety net of feeling like you're fairly close to shore. So yeah, I think that's our plan, and love to have you join us for some of our future videos. We do a sailing related video every Friday, so hope to see you here for that. If you do enjoy it, click the subscribe button and the bell, and we'll notify you every time we upload new content. And then every Tuesday, we've been doing a grilling series. Now that we're not living on the boat and living in a home, bringing the boat out here, we have the ability to have a big smoker and a grill and things that weren't that little rail-mounted one that sat right on the stern of the boat. So we've been enjoying that and doing all kinds of cooking videos, and we do those every Tuesday. Thanks a bunch. I hope you guys enjoy this. We'll see you all next Friday for another sailing video. So with that, fair winds and a following sea. Be safe.